Hello and welcome everyone to the Harvest number 7 at TS Designs Dye House in Burlington, North Carolina. I'm Courtney Lockemer. I'm the brand manager for Solid State Clothing. And today I'm being joined by Eric Henry, who's sneaking in behind me, CEO and president of Solid State Clothing and TS Designs, and Sarah Mollis, who is TS Design Summer Intern joining us from the University of Cincinnati. We're really happy to have her here with us. So at this point, I'd like to invite everyone attending to introduce yourself in the chat. Just tell us if you like who you are and where you're joining us from. So a little bit about our session today. The Harvest is part of 10,000 Pounds of Cotton, which is a project of Solid State Clothing and TS Designs to source cotton directly from a North Carolina farmer at a fair price and to make it into premium t-shirts entirely in North and South Carolina. So this series of events is part of our commitment to transparency, which means letting you meet each part of the supply chain, learn more about what each company does, and have the opportunity to ask them questions. So we're here, this is the last step, but it takes 7 separate steps and businesses to make a t-shirt. So we've been on the journey for a few months. We started with a meeting with our cotton farmer, Andrew Burleson. Next, we went to learn about ginning at Rolling Hills Gin, spinning cotton into yarn at the Spun Lab division of Parkdale Mills, knitting yarn into fabric at Contempora Fabrics, fabric finishing at Carolina Cotton Works, and then cutting and sewing at Opportunity Threads. So we've been in a few different places in North and South Carolina, all really interesting businesses that we're really excited to have as part of our supply chain. And if you've missed any of these and want to catch up, you can watch recordings of all of those sessions on the TS Designs YouTube channel. And at the very end of this, I'll give you a specific link to that. So today, you'll notice that this last stop of the Harvest, the hosts are also the subject of today. And that's because all of the t-shirts that Solid State Clothing and TS Designs offer are garment dyed in-house here. So we're not just a brand, we're also part of our supply chain. And garment dyeing is the process of dyeing clothing after it's been sewn and constructed. So it's not the way most clothing gets its color. Most is either yarn dyed or dyed as fabric. Dyed or printed as fabric. But we're going to learn more about that process today and its advantages as we get into our discussion. A little background on TS Designs, I'm sure Eric will tell us more, but TS Designs has set out to make the highest quality, most sustainable t-shirts on the market and works with brands who want to provide their customers with responsibly made clothing that's easy on the environment. In 2008, TS Designs became the first certified B Corporation in North Carolina. And the triple bottom line model still guides our business: people, planet, profit. Founded in 1977, TS Design sets the bar for corporate responsibility by cultivating responsible clothing with completely transparent supply chains. So now I am going to switch over to Eric. And shall we go ahead and do the tour? Yeah, so we're going to switch. Right now we're in the dye storage and weighing facility. We're going to walk out into the main dye facility. So give us just a minute as we do a little technology switch.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad to do what I just did. I am 3 weeks past my second COVID shot, and boy, what a year it's been, and so excited and happy to have you down in our dye house. I want to give a special shout out to Nelson Hauser. I think his first cotton conversation been on. Nelson, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. Nelson and I go back. He was in the early days. We developed this process here called rehance, which required garment dyeing. And we developed it probably 15 years ago. In the early days, we would contract it out. We didn't have to worry about it. Smart people like Nelson told them what to do. But as the industry continued to collapse down, less and less garment dyers were available. And the facility that we're standing today is near downtown Burlington. And it actually used to be an old sock manufacturer where they would knit the socks upstairs. They would bring them down on a freight elevator, and then they would dye them here. So we started dyeing shirts about 5 years ago. They would do their socks on first shift and then do our t-shirts on second shift. And that was working good too, until they said, hey, we're going to close this place down. I said, oh my gosh, there's no more garment dye facilities left. So we jumped out there and we bought all this equipment. We leased 5,000 square feet down here. But again, it's the Nelson Hausers. He's now, the guy's in retirement. He's still out there, a big fan of our support of us. That really has held my hand, because I knew nothing about garment dyeing. And sometimes my wife thinks it's my second home, because I spend a lot of hours. But I still, the excitement you get over bringing literally a white t-shirt down here, and 8 to 9 hours later, it goes out one of the best wearing, highest quality product. It was just magic. So what I'm going to do with Courtney's help, we're going to walk through and kind of tell you about how garment is unique and different. And that's what there's one in the South here. What we do here, and also talk about some exciting plans that we have in the future, working with Courtney and Sarah, a bunch of other people, to bring the next step of our journey to bring the highest quality, most sustainable, domestically made apparel. The domestic is the thing is, we were fighting over gas pumps today, the challenge with global supply chain. Well, come on this way, Courtney, we'll talk about garment dyeing. Most likely, the apparel that you're wearing today, that you're sitting at home or sitting in the office, was done what they call by piece dyeing, jet dyeing, fabric dyeing. There's a lot of different ways, but they're dyeing bolts of fabric. And the industry made a big shift to that years ago. Why? Basically chasing volume and lower price. We have gone the complete opposite direction. We start off with a finished white t-shirt. And as I mentioned earlier, about 15 years ago, we developed a process called rehance. And to my knowledge, there's nobody in the world that does t-shirts this way. We print, then garment dye. So TS Designs, which is about 5 miles away from here, on Monday through Thursday, prints white t-shirts. And then they come down here, usually Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday, depending how busy we are, and then we garment dye them. So this white shirt, this is what they call paddle dye tub, because a paddle. The other thing's interesting, they don't make this equipment anymore. So we do a good job. It's all stainless steel. But another thing that I like to say that we've done, and garment dyeing has gotten a very bad rap of being inconsistent. And you're exactly right. There's some variables here that we have hard. I mean, this is basically water from the city. I mean, it's cold water right here. Upstairs is a giant gas-fired boiler that creates steam. That comes on this back line here. And then we have these controls that turn the paddle, and then just a drain. So what we've done, we control the variables that we can control, which is time, which is temperature, and behind Courtney's weights. So we are very, very attention to detail on those things. And then we've also developed these very sophisticated recipes. So that assures us that every time we do it, it's done a certain way. And I always like to say the analogy, you can't add the eggs to the cake after it's been baked. There are certain steps you have to be done, certain times, certain temperatures. So by following temperatures, times, and weights, we can go, we've got 9 machines here. So I don't care.
Video dropped, Courtney.
I'm gonna go see if there's anything I can go do to help. And we'll be back in just a second. The Wi-Fi is like just kind of shoddy down there.
Okay.
One thing I will say about Eric and TS Designs, if anybody walks the talk, he does. He walks the talk.
No doubt about that. He's had a consistent message for many years, hasn't he, Nelson?
Yes, and he looks for innovation and the technology. And even though he's talking about the older equipment there, he's made investments in that equipment to make it work, continue to work.
He figured out a way to survive NAFTA, which is, commendable.
That's true.
Hey, Jimmy Barnhart. I see him on here. Gina, we've been connected for a while, but I don't think we've ever met, have we? You're muted.
Yep, there we go. I think we met at a Southeastern textile event in Greensboro, maybe a year ago.
It's possible. I'm guessing maybe Seams.
Yeah, I was there with Eric.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric spoke at that one, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was more than a year ago because it was before the whole COVID
Definitely.
thing.
Yeah. At the Grandover.
Yep. Exactly. That's where it was.
I cover so many events, but I can remember certain speakers and certain people and, presentations and all that. So
Yeah.
So Gina, who are you with?
I am with Native Spun. We are a hand weaver. Actually, Nelson, we've met too because I'm in the back of Eric's space.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I rent the back part of his t-shirt factory, and I think we met when I was again pre-COVID because I had an office up in his area, and you came to visit.
Okay. Yeah, I've been over a few times, but not since the COVID issue. And Jimmy, you are with.
I've known Eric for about 7 years. The last 6 years, I was with Unify, selling the Reprieve brand of recycled polyester yarns.
Yes.
And COVID hit, and they nixed me, unfortunately. I love the Reprieve brand, and I love the Solid State brand. And I love Eric's passion. He's just a very good friend of mine, and I love listening to him anytime I have the chance.
Yeah.
And B, this works good.
Yeah, Courtney and Eric have moved up here with me.
Why don't I jump into her seat?
Yeah.
Do that?
My notes downstairs.
We'll do that.
I can go get them. What? Where are they at?
Yeah. In the little.
Hello, everyone.
And we've been talking about you while you.
Well, hey, this is a good example. You got to have contingency plans for those poor souls out there that depend on gasoline, and you got one pipeline that comes out of Texas. Guess what? You have a problem, you're out of gasoline. We already had a plan B in place. We're upstairs at the dye house on a whole nother network. Sarah was kind of entertaining while Courtney's behind me. I don't know, Courtney, what's over here?
Sure. Well, and Eric, you should tell them what your contingency plan is for a lack of gas.
Well, I like to drive that electric vehicle. So, I don't know where we got cut off downstairs, but I was talking about the scour process, and then I was going to go into the garment dye process, and then you end up with, showing this product here. Guess what we start off with. Then a few hours later, you get this magic here. And again, Nelson was on the team that developed this process, not only from the garment dye standpoint, it's where we print the garment dye. So the next step after that is just a cleanup process. What do we do to get all the residual dyes off of it and clean it up, soften it? And then it goes to another machine. I'll explain it. It's a giant extractor. It gets the water out of it, and then it goes to the other side of the room down there and gets it put in a big commercial dryer. The advantage of garment dyeing, I like to say, and this is a very, very old joke that probably people 1,000 times, is you get one of our shirts here and it doesn't fit 6 months from now, it's not the shirt's fault. Because I can tell you when it leaves our facility, this shirt doesn't shrink. You know, we've all bought shirts that said pre-shrunk, and you take them home and wear them 3 or 4 times and it shrinks up 2 inches. This won't happen. So it's also made us make a better quality t-shirt. Another advantage of working domestically. Our supply chain is right here in the Carolinas. So we're super excited about that. Trying to think what else I was going to say about the, the other advantage, you know, Burlington used to be a big textile community. And like Nelson and I, we're the old guys here. Remember, we were around here pre-NAFTA when it was all right here. This is where Burlington industry started. We are 4 blocks away from the City of Burlington wastewater treatment facility. So we get advantage. First, they're close. Second, they're great partners. But again, this is a facility that had to upgrade. I guess that was back in the 70s with the clean water regs. And so not only there's a lot less stuff going in the drain, they have the environment which to, you know, mitigate anything that we put in there. So we're very aware of and on top of things that go in our drain, but having a partnership with the city 4 blocks away, again, most apparel being made overseas, a lot of times you don't know where that dye is going, and probably you don't want to know where that dye is going because in developing countries, it's going right into the wastewater, not wastewater, right into the streams and rivers that somewhere downstream somebody's got to drink. So again, the advantage of domestic and doing it here in the Carolinas, we have the resources to do it here. So that's kind of a quick snapshot. What we can do, you know, for those that are, you know, on that bandwagon of getting your COVID shots, our team has been on that. I'd like to get you down here. Love to give you a tour. We'd love to show our place off here. We're super excited. One of our goals at TS Designs this summer is take our dye house from 2 days to 5 days. I'm really going to be leaning on the Nelsons and the Kents. We picked up a big wool dye program for the military berets. So we're opening up the contract garment dyeing too. We do a lot of denim programs for denim companies. And we'll talk a little bit more about, I'm super excited about these ladies right here, because one thing that was getting ready to launch when COVID hit, we had it lined up, people coming in, was this thing called COVID. But we are jumping in with both feet and everybody to develop a natural dye system with the long-term goal to develop natural dyes from locally grown agriculture products. Again, we are going to step out that as that journey to make the highest quality, most sustainable. So we're going after the dyes here. So again, I'm going to probably give Nelson a few more gray hairs because I think this is an area he's not that up to speed on. So he's been very helpful with his connection with AATCC on getting us up to their workshop. And so super excited about the summer with Sarah on board. Courtney's heading that up, and we got some people from all over the country, both NC State and the West Coast, to do that. So I think what we're going to do, instead of me just kind of rambling on here, Courtney's actually got some questions. We'll go through that, and then we'll open up to you and let us know what you want to know. And please come back to the dye house sometime, and I will give you the real tour and the complete tour. Plus, we made sure we weren't running today, so it'd be super loud down there, so you couldn't hear anything. So what are we going to do here, Ms. Courtney?
All right, so I'm turning,
Yeah.
we're reconnected
Okay.
on, got Sarah reconnected so she can monitor the chat. So I'm gonna start with some questions for Eric. In the meantime, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and Sarah, you can just wave your hand if anyone has a comment or a question that we
Throw
can.
something at us.
Yeah, just throw some things at us.
Okay.
So thanks for the tour. Thank you everyone for the patience with technical difficulties. You know, one thing, if you were here in person, Eric never goes out.
It's a lot of caffeine. I'm like Nelson. We like our coffee.
Okay, so Eric, before we get into garment dyeing specifically, tell us a little about the history of TS Designs and how you got to where we are now. Question. Yes, ma'am.
Nelson says, comment on the made in the USA and traceability. I don't know if there's a previous comment made. And then Jimmy asked, what is the dye time cycle for, say, a solid state shirt?
Good questions.
Okay, first of all, I guess we'll start with the Nelson Made in USA. And again, a lot of people ask me, we've been in this industry for 40 years. And just a simple business I started down in NC State in 1978. And we grew to what they call a large volume contract screen. So our customers are Tommy, Nike, Gap, Polo. And that Shannon, my plant manager, corrected me. I always said 100, but he said we were up to 130 employees. A lot of folks work at TS Designs. We were profitable. The banks loved to loan us money. It put us in a 20,000 square foot building. January 1, 1994, NAFTA was ratified within 2 years, and Nelson was on that one too, and probably other people on this call here. We laid off down to 20 people. The brands could not get out of this country quick enough. The brands basically saw they could make it cheaper overseas at developing countries. So they couldn't get out of this country fast enough. But we realized even then, there's something wrong with the model. When you go outside of your market for a product or service you're marketing deliver and go somewhere else to bring it back here for us to buy is wrong. We have all the assets. We can grow it. We can process it. We can manufacture it all here in the Carolinas. So we never left. So one of the first brands we developed was Cotton of the Carolinas, again, probably about 12 years ago, in which we buy the cotton from a farmer in Stanley County, North Carolina, 60 miles from here. Matter of fact, we'll be going down there next week to buy cotton for this fall. That's where our 10K comes from, is Andrew Burleson. So we've never left. And I think we are finding out with things like COVID, shit stuck in the Suez Canal, now waiting in lines at the gas. These global supply chains, depending on the cheapest cost, are not resilient. What we do here is resilient. So again, I think a lot of people realize that it's not just about price. It's about controlling the variables and being able to deliver. I think, and the other one was Jimmy, is the dye cycle. Again, 3 processes: the scour, the dye, the cleanup. Scour's about maybe an hour, the dyeing's about 3 to 4 hours, and the cleanup's about another hour. So altogether, it's about a 6-hour process. And again, it's longer than most people who do in a reactive dye environment, but we want to get it right the first time. You know, our industry has said, we'll do an ad later, we'll do a pullback. No, we want to get it right the first time. And I say we do that about 99% of the time. And again, you know, because of just systems we do, if there is a failure, and sometimes things happen, like the internet breaks, we have motors break, we will have, but typically it's either a massive fallout of one job. Other than that, we just don't have dye issues because we run a consistent, very accurate procedure every time.
Great.
Okay.
So you talked a little bit about the philosophy of TS Designs. How did you get into doing garment dyeing for TS Designs?
Well, as I mentioned briefly, and I don't know when we got cut off downstairs, is the original business plan when we developed this print process Rehance. It was developed between TS Designs and Burlington Chemical Company. That's where I met Nelson. And it was a joint venture. It took us about 2 years to develop, and this would have been mid-90s because we realized we're not going to be the low-cost producers, so we wanted to do. So it took us 2 years to do this. And at that time, there were a lot of companies that garment dyed. So again, working with Burlington Chemical, we just developed the procedure. We said, okay, company A, company B, you know, here's 1,000 shirts, here's a procedure, you dye it. And we constantly had a lot of problems because people were focusing on the color, but remember there's a print on this thing here too. So they have a lot of people that were not following the procedure. Well, as years went by, we ended up here and we started dyeing our shirts on second shift. And, you know, we gave them procedure and we kind of observed. And then again, they announced, again, 6 or 7 years, they were going to shut this facility down. We looked around at that time. The last garment dye facility I know was Tumbling Colors, Chuck Stewart in Raleigh. He was shutting down. So we bought all the equipment and then we leased the space and then we jumped in with both feet to learn how to do it. And it's a continued journey. How do we do it better? How do we do it more efficiently? And how do we have a better environmental impact? And that's why I'm super excited about the natural dyeing that's coming up.
Great. Thanks, Eric. So and I think you talked a little bit about what the facility did before it was garment dyeing for t-shirts. And it's been around since what, the 1960s?
And maybe Nelson help. Was this a Kaiser Rolf facility or Burlington Industry facility? You remember? Well, I'm going to cue Nelson, you're on mute, but I'm going to ask you if you remember which one it was. You're on mute, Nelson. Okay.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't remember. I have time lapses, you know. So.
Well, hey, I do too. Anyway, it was a major textile company. It was either Burlington or Kaiser Raw that were, this is, especially the section that we're in or start in. My gosh, it was probably built, early 1900, as you can see by the timbers and stuff like. We're in the newer section. We're actually in the front office upstairs section of it. But anyway, it got taken over by Willowbrook Hosiery. Willowbrook Hosiery was, they were just dyeing socks at the time that they were dyeing our t-shirts. And the other funny story I was telling Courtney yesterday is that what was the gentleman that worked for Burlington Chemical that was retired that helped me? You remember his name? Older guy? Help me.
You're not talking about Tom Boshin.
No, not Tom.
Bascom.
Do what?
You're not talking about Bascom.
He helped me actually worked me at the dye house. Showed me how to dye. I mean, he worked down here. I think he was
Wayne Teller.
Yes.
Wayne Teller.
Yeah. So I always said, Wayne and every people, they originally, it was all about, they had an analog watch and they would, they would count 30 minutes off analog watch and everything was, 50 pounds of this, 30 minutes of that. Well, we're long past that. We're down to seconds and hundredths of a gram and tenths of a degree because that's how you get consistency shirt to shirt. But they kind of got started on that path.
Back in those days, it was an art. Now it's a science.
Yes.
Even with the natural dyes and stuff, it's a science now.
It's true. Yeah. So Eric, Todd asks about how many shirts go into a dye machine at once. They look relatively small compared to some big fabric dye machines. So does garment dyeing allow you to run small specialty lots?
Thanks, Todd. And shout out to, I think you're still out on that West Coast. Todd's a friend I haven't seen in a few years due to COVID. Our biggest tub is 164 pounds. And what does that equate? We can put 100, well, I say 100, we put 164 pounds of product in there. I usually like to say a t-shirt weighs a half a pound. So you figure it's about 300 some t-shirts. So what we also do, Todd, and we got all the way down to sample tubs that are 7.5 pounds, mainly due for our development work. But another thing that we do is we call level load our tubs. So even though our customers are ordering 100 t-shirts or 1,000 t-shirts, we got to break that down to an exact weight. And once we get that exact weight, going back to the 164 pound tub, is we have to level load that. So that means we will be adding cotton filler and we have to add some polyester filler because again, making sure that weight is always the same will give us accuracy for the color here. So we have on our website, and maybe one of y'all can post it up there, is our dye house spec on TS Design's website or share that link. Mm-hmm. And we've got, again, 9 production tubs, 164 pounds being the biggest. And then we have 2 sample tubs of 7.5 pounds.
Great. And Carla asks, are we garment dyeing any fleece or French terry or just t-shirts? Tees, yeah. That's a great question.
Well, first of all,
that's getting into one of, because, yeah, go ahead.
Well, everything we do is what they call atmospheric dyeing. We don't have any pressure tubs down here. We're focused on natural fibers. Cellulose, which would be cotton, tencel, rayon, hemp, big on hemp coming up soon. That'll be another discussion down the road. We do, animals, fibers like wool. That's an acid dye. So again, as long as it's a natural fiber, we can do. We've done fleece. We've done long sleeves. We just did a big denim program for LC King over in Tennessee. So long as it's a cellulose product or a wool product, and I'm working again thanks to Nelson and Kent. We've got a nylon product. Yeah, we've never done nylon before, but I understand we can do nylon in this environment. So I'll be going back to Nelson again for some hand holding. But right now it's anything, but mainly finished apparel product. We don't do we can't do yardage. You send me 100 yards in here, all we do is get tangled up on that tub and make them. Now we can that 100 yards into 1 yard sections and dye them, but we cannot just do, bolts of fabric.
Great. And Carla added, yes, please, hemp. We're working on it.
Oh, boy, it's a tough one. It's a hard one. We're getting there.
Will you be able to use the natural dyes in your current tubs? Should I answer that one?
This is Courtney and Sarah. Come on in here, Sarah. This is y'all. This is the natural dye team. I'll step out of this picture because they're teaching me.
So the answer is yes. And we actually, we've done some experiments in years past before Sarah and
I left it
joined.
at the office, so blame it on me.
We left our samples at the office, but they're on Instagram.
Yes.
Yes.
they're on
And
Instagram.
Facebook too.
We just posted on
Facebook.
Instagram. And it doesn't, someone said it looks like really colorful spaghetti because we use cotton fabric scraps. But that's because we just wanted to use scraps to test out the process, and we like to reuse things. But the short answer is yes, we are developing a process for using natural dyes in the current tubs that we have. And so our first experiment we did with the 2 sample tubs, which are 7.5 pounds each, start to finish scour, mordant, dye, wash, post-wash, and it worked great. Yeah, Carla wants to visit too. We're gonna get some tours in here. So that was sort of our proof of concept, and we're pretty excited. But yes, so it works. And one of the really nice things about these machines is that we can bring them, because they're heated with steam, we can bring them to temperature really quickly and maintain a good constant temperature. And they also agitate really nicely. So if anyone here has done dyes or hasn't, one of the really important things for getting consistent color is to stir regularly or constantly so that dye doesn't pool in one spot or another. And these tubs, Eric said that you actually engineered them. When you first got them, there was on, and it went all in one direction.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually developed, had a switch made that can do on, off, automatic. Automatic is runs forward for a little bit, stops, runs backwards for a little bit. So it's a really ideal agitation process, but it's also really gentle. It's not like the spin cycle in your washing machine. It sort of is like, it's ideal. So it works really well for natural dyes in that way. And we sort of, we're working with it. Seemed to all come out pretty darn well. So we're excited.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it being more saturated. Awesome color.
Yeah, Tara said that she saw we were doing natural dyes on Instagram, which drew her here. And you're at UNC Greensboro School of Theater. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so that's our natural dyes. And I will say, and bring Eric in for this, that our long-term goal is not just to do natural dyes, but to do locally produced natural dyes. So something that we're starting to do at the same time, we're developing these processes in the dye house, but we're also starting to talk to farmers and other people about how we can get people growing the dyes we can use. And one of the things that we're doing at TS Designs is focusing on dye materials that we can grow here. So looking at, what are the flowers, weldon matter you can grow here. What else can we source? We actually just I picked up yesterday, black walnut hull powder that a local woman and her kids harvested black walnuts from their backyard and made them into powder and said, would you want this? So we're going to be getting to do some experiments with their first totally locally sourced dyes. Yes.
Someone asked about locally grown indigo.
So
I'll jump in on that one. Again, this is all new to me. I'm excited to learn. What I understand, indigo is a vat dyed system. So we're not working our current equipment, but we already started taking another space in our dye house and opening it up and getting ready for that. We're working very closely with Sarah Bellows out in Tennessee, Stony Creek Colors. So she's going to be our go-to. So local as of North Carolina, Tennessee, in the South somewhere. So that's another thing. We're kind of getting the natural dyeing we're doing right now is using our existing equipment. But as I said, during the summer, at least we want to develop a business plan. And if somebody wants to write a check, we'll be glad to take that too. Because we got to build this equipment, because I understand it is a vat dyed system, but we got the space, we got the way to treat the wastewater, we've got the hot water. So it is something that is definitely on radar screen. But I want to kind of segue just for a second. And I think it's kind of a somewhat funny story and a serious story at the same time about our natural dyes. Why do we do what we do? We can be very satisfied. We produce good. Let's just stop there. And it's all about the journey. We were sitting in our office yesterday with some meetings and invited Sarah in. And there was a gentleman there from a local university helping us, and I really appreciate it. And I looked across the table and I first asked him, I said, and they're this is a university. And first of all, I said, I can most likely tell you all the clothes that you're wearing today are not made in this country. And he said, you're probably right. And I said, that 100% polyester shirt, which you didn't know was 100% poly, is driven by fossil fuels. And I pointed outside our window in our conference room at a black walnut tree. I said, I want to die from that. And I want to die from that because it's going to be hard as hell, but it's not because of me, it's because of Sarah that's sitting over there. We have an opportunity to change the world we will live for this next generation. And just because it works now doesn't mean it's right for the future. And so this is why we're taking on this next very difficult, challenging. I'm sure these ladies are going to be very frustrated. We're going to have our downfalls. Well, I've lost all my hair. I can't lose any more hair, but with them, but it's the right thing to do, is to do it transparently, do it domestically, and improve the environment. So I'm super excited, hopefully with their help here. I mean, literally, we're going to harvest black walnuts outside our conference room, whenever that is, and we're going to be dying from it. And that's what we need to be doing. So again, I'm super excited. Sarah on our team, Courtney is aware of so many hats at TS Designs, also heads up Piedmont Fiber Shed. Another shout out to Courtney on that. But anyway, let me get back to the questions or what other people have there. So rambling on.
Great. So I'm gonna since we've been talking about kinds of dyes, natural dyes are really exciting, and the ones we've been using currently are a lot better than many of the dye options out there. We use reactive dyes, and can you talk about what those are and how they're different from some of the other dye options for garment dyeing?
Well, when we first got into this process, again, working with Nelson, the folks at Burlington Chemical, we identified reactive dye as again, nobody was talking natural dyes, 15, 20 years ago. So we landed on reactive for the best wash fastness, lice fastness, and the best environmental impact of the dyes are out there, which are typically, and Nelson, please correct me, is pigment dyes, direct dyes, and reactive dyes. And we thought reactive dyes was the best to land on that's going to give us the highest quality with the least environmental impact. We do what they call low impact reactives. I know it's kind of a stretch. What does it really mean? We're able to dye at a little bit lower temperatures, less energy, and we use a little bit less salt. That's the main thing that you use in reactive dyes. So I always like to say it's the best that was available at the time. But again, that's another exciting. And again, we're going to do our homework on natural dye. Just because it says natural dyes, we're not going to just assume, it's all good. We got to make sure. And the other thing too is I found out working with these ladies here, most natural dyes are not coming from this country. They're imported, just like our dyes. I can tell you all of our dyes are not, there's no reactive dyes, again, that I know are made in this country. It's all imported. So that's why.
Not many dyes at all.
Yeah, you got to start where you are, which we are going to be using imported natural dyes. But hopefully by the summer, fall, we will identify some agriculture and then start that conversation, just like with cotton in the Carolinas. And the relationship we started with that farmer 12 years ago, I believe, and still buys cotton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the thing that you offer is the flexibility to work with a lot of different things with the type of equipment you've got and the expertise there. So flexibility is something you got.
Well, and the thing too, thank you, Nelson. And what says the advantage of garment dyeing is inventory management and flexibility, because we're deciding color. Literally, we sit in a meeting 4 days a week at TS Designs, and we got an inventory of white shirts over here, and we got a stack of orders. So if Nelson's order is not due for say 6 weeks, I don't really worry about Nelson's order. I'm gonna worry about Sarah's order that she needs black t-shirts next week, or Courtney needs red shirts. So we can go pull that inventory. So our inventory is as low as possible cost. It's unprinted, undyed. So we're trying to share that message, just like with LC King Denim Program. Instead of them going way back their supply chain and making it tens of thousands of yards of green denim and red denim and blue denim, they just made a natural denim and then said, okay, I want 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. And we did it in 2 weeks. And so inventory, because again, what's the biggest challenge the industry has is taking longer to get to market. So you're making this guess 6 months to a year out, then you get it in and you got way too many pink smalls, and that's why things are always on sale. We want to minimize the markdowns so the brand, and then we cut out this crazy stuff, waste and fast fashion, because we drive it to cheap. We make way too much because obviously it's going to be cheaper overseas, but when we do it here, but yeah, you're exactly right. Inventory management, and we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're open for business in a way we're looking for contract customers, people that want to supply product to us that we can garment dye. We got plenty of warehouse space. We've got a great system of schedule. We can produce it because again, we're just running 2 days. And in this summer, I won't be running 5 days. So if you got business out there, you're interested in garment dyeing and learn more about it, please follow up with us.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we had a comment from Tara that she's researching local dye materials in the Piedmont as a part of a faculty fellowship at UNCG and would love to share our process with her classes.
That's amazing. We love to hear about what your research too, Tara. That's really cool. So email us.
And Greensboro is only about 20 minutes away from here, so they're super close.
Yeah,
Sarah's from Cincinnati. Awesome. She's
learning about North Carolina. That's great. Well, and Eric, I think this is that question, like what we were just talking about, is a great transition to the fact that we're not just dyeing our own t-shirts, we do garment dyeing services for other brands.
Yes.
And so can you talk about a couple of the projects that we do? And also, I'm just curious, I don't actually know, when did you start doing that?
We've always talked about it, but I would say a couple years ago, and probably the best story really got us into this is 4th of July, 2 years ago, I believe, is I got contacted by the company that produces the military wool berets. And if you know anything about dealing with the military, it's a thing called a Berry Amendment, which means it's got to be manufactured in the U.S. So a company reached out to me from Virginia that was making the wool berets, green berets, but there's black berets, white berets, all different colors. And they were working with a company in Tennessee. That company in Tennessee went out of business. They had heard through the grapevine we do garment dyeing and wondered if we could dye wool berets. And I said, well, I've never dyed wool before. So literally they came down with their people the next week. And within 2 weeks, we were up and dyeing. Like everything, it was bumpy at first. But the cool thing I will say about this is the same thing I was telling Courtney to say with our natural dye, is when we bring in new either dye systems or dye material, we want to set up these systems that it's just a recipe and following instructions. So literally if you came to our dye house yesterday, there'll be a tub of these Saks Hall t-shirts, which you haven't been to Saks Hall. Look, that's when you come to Burlington, we'll take you down here. Great little restaurant down in Saks Hall, North Carolina. But the tub beside, these are t-shirts we printed. Right beside that, we're dyeing gray wool berets for the military. And Mark, who runs the dye house, it comes up on the schedule. He says, he just pulls a recipe. There's a recipe for dyeing wool, and it's for this particular tub. And when he puts in the cool thing about our procedure, I was showing you, because when it comes down, when you're running that dye house and it's hot, it's humid, it's loud, I can literally walk in there and look at that procedure and know where Mark is. And without asking him one question, I can step right in and take over. So if Mark gets overwhelmed and Mark has to take a break, or Mark, whatever, or whoever's down there, and eventually these ladies will learn it. It's not, it's all in Nelson's head, but that doesn't do anybody else a good if it's in his head. We will make sure everybody has easy access. So we will do the same thing with natural dyes. We will develop these recipes because we want to be able to make it repeatable, but we don't want to make it so hard for somebody to come down there. We can't go through a learning curve with every order. We've got to say, Sarah, this is how you dye it. You follow the steps, you get results. You don't follow the steps, then we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and so talking about what happens when you don't follow the steps, I think one of the interesting things about a garment dyeing facility is it allows for over dyeing, which has become a popular, like sort of over the last year or two, a way that brands are thinking about circularity and being able to give clothing a new life. So can you talk about that and any other new developments in the apparel industry and garment dyeing and circularity?
Well, there again, another big change. Now, we used to think the last stop was TS Designs, and now people are talking about what happens when you're finished with the product. How can we either recycle it, upcycle it, and we are starting to talk about Eileen Fisher's probably has one of the most notable brands where they will bring their product back, what they call, I forget what the name of the program is, but they over dye the product. So the nice thing, we're talking to other companies about doing that, typically over dye it black. The nice thing about it, our process doesn't beat up the garment anymore. I mean, you can't have a beaten up garment made it new again, but if it's in good shape, especially if it's got a stain on it, or it's a color that you don't like or something like that. So We're talking to other brands. In addition, we've been talking to Eileen Fisher about that because they're doing, I think, a small program up like in Seattle, and they want to expand that. But you know, the overdive, so keep those good products in the marketplace and keep them out of the landfill, or basically create a second life for it. So it is something new that we've just started talking to folks about, and it's again an opportunity we'd like to be to talk to other people they're interested in. They've got apparel products that for some reason maybe that funky pink is not as exciting as you thought it was going to be. But typically over dyeing, we want to keep it simple. We want to get around from, you know, aggressive pullbacks to pull the color off of it, because you can start damaging the fabric. But again, it gets a little more complicated. But if you got products that you're interested in, that again, it's got to be cotton based or cellulose based. You know, but it can have buttons and zippers and all that type stuff. Yes, Sarah.
Carla wants to know, can you do any dye extraction to give a creative dye effect?
Are you assuming like dip dyes and tie dyes and things like that? I assume that's what we're talking about.
I think so.
We get a lot of ask about tie dye. Matter of fact, the facility here, they used to they would tie dye socks, and very labor intensive. You know, you're basically wrapping up rubber bands and stuff.
Oh, she said more of taking the dye out. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some interesting things going on there. The technology that we use here to take dye out, and Nelson can remind me what it's that one nasty chemical that we have down there that he's on mute again. We got Nelson on mute. Help me with the chemical name. What's that?
A reducing agent, the hydrosulfite.
Yes, it smells like rotten eggs. You got to wear a respirator. You got to be very careful with it. We can do it. I don't like to do it. But there's some pretty cool tech. Check out a company called CIRC.earth. Matter of fact, I need to go get them. I ran the test yesterday. They have a environmentally friendly process that basically removes the dyes. And we just got the shirts back last week. They're up in Danville, Virginia. Super excited to work with them. We're trying to see what's going to happen. Nelson is they pulled all the color out of the shirt and did no damage to the fabric. But you could see a residue of the print. I mean, you could see the print. We're trying to see what happens when you overdye the whole shirt. So I'm excited about that because it's a greener way, and it's fairly new technology. But we try to avoid that because it's just, once you go down the rabbit hole trying to pull color off, you can get into other problems. Because sometimes it will pull, you know, typically like a black has multiple dyes that make this. So you'll end up with a light green t-shirt. You know, some of the dyes won't come off clean.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get you, isn't that right? It won't get this to a white t-shirt.
Yeah, you might not get a uniform strip.
Yeah. And then you try to dye over it, and then it can just be a mess. So we try to avoid it, get it right the first time. So excited about the stuff that CIRC's working on.
And let's see, we have about 7 minutes left. What should brands or designers interested in garment dyeing know? So if someone's out there and they're thinking, I want to do garment dyeing, or if they're interested in working with you, what are some of the things they should know?
Well, and that's one reason we got into making our own t-shirts, because when you're buying, quote, off the shelf, you don't know what kind of yarn, how it was knit, how it was finished, how it was sewn. And when you garment dye this stuff, you know, you're stressing all those systems out. And once it's been garment dyed, it's hard to go back and fix it from the standpoint if they don't knit it or finish properly, then you get a shirt that shrink. You know, we've had shirts that I've literally had a shirt that torqued so much, the side seam was on the front. That's fabric finishing. So, you know, we really make sure we test people. We help them make sure they don't get caught in the middle, because we're going to garment dye this black. And when it comes out, and if that seam's on the front, the shirt's supposed to be on the side, we still want to get paid. But we want to make sure that you're asking the right question of your supplier making that product, that you are, a lot of time is prepared for garment dye. One of the biggest mistakes that people make, and we've done it ourselves, hundreds if not thousands shirts, is typically people sew shirts with poly cotton thread. And so our t-shirt looks white. And so it could be sewn with poly cotton thread, which is white. When you garment dye this product, that poly cotton thread does not dye, it stays white. So then all around your seams, you have this contrasting. Now, if you want it to look like that way, fine. But what happens, one sleeve will have it, the other one won't, or some will want around the collar, or they'll actually change out midway, and you get to have it. And there's nothing we can do about it, you know, because we do atmospheric dyeing. You know, we're dyeing the cotton or the cellulose and not the poly. So it's really, we can help you work with your supply chain and making sure they know what you're doing. So we don't want to get caught in the middle of, we dyed it gray, Courtney, but I'm sorry you got this poly thread, but we still want to get paid for our 1,000 t-shirts.
Yeah.
And but you're going like, I didn't know. So testing is important, and then making sure your POs with your contractors clearly specify what you're doing with the finished product. So at the end of the day, we have success. Everybody's happy and everybody gets paid.
Right. And I think, and this is true for reactive dyes and natural dyes. Different fabrics, even just different cotton fabrics, are going to look a little bit different from each other.
Yes.
You know, we can get consistent color, but and so that's something to think about if you're going to be combining different fabrics or
that's what she's talking about here is, you know, cotton is a natural fiber. So, you know, every lot to lot, this is going to dye a little bit differently. And they have a thing a lot they call paneling. So you've got, you know, a sleeve and a body. And, you know, we'll get sometimes where the sleeve doesn't match the body. But, you know, what I like to tell people, if you can clearly separate it by that seam there, I can't dye that accurately. That tells me there's different lots of fabric. That can be done, you know, in the cutting. They mixed up, you know, lots of fabric there. It can be done in the spinning or whatever. So lot integrity is super, super critical. You know, that to make sure you don't have, and we call it paneling, where the, you know, part of the shirt doesn't match the other shirt, and it's clearly separated by a seam.
Right. Unless that's a dye effect, a design effect that you're going for.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that as someone who is a hobby knitter, dye lots are something that knitters know about, because if you're knitting a sweater from 8 balls of yarn and they've been dyed in different batches, you could have a striping effect just from a little bit of variation in that. So yeah, there's variation out in the world, but it's also a really cool process. And it makes them softer because they've been, not only are they pre-shrunk, but they're softer because they've been pre-washed and they feel really nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of Sarah's pay. She gets all the t-shirts she wants for the summer. And occasionally we give her a check. Any other questions? I think we're getting close to our time.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to get in touch with us, Sarah. I mean, you gave us, you know, our contact there.
I have some closing notes.
Okay.
I have official closing.
Okay, close us out of here. Thanks, Courtney. Keep it official.
So if I can find the right page. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to everyone who has attended. This wraps up our journey through our supply chain for the 10,000 pounds of cotton project. We're really appreciative to everyone who's joined us along the way. And we really hope to be able to keep having these conversations about domestic sustainable manufacturing and apparel as we move forward, even beyond 10,000 pounds of cotton. So if you have suggestions for topics we should cover, people we should invite, format suggestions, we'd love to hear from you, because we really enjoy having other people be a part of this conversation. You can email hello@tsdesigns.com. That's our sort of general email address, or email Eric, eric@tsdesigns.com. And if you want to get the details on the 10,000 pounds of cotton project, you can go to solidstate.clothing. There's a page called 10K Cotton, 10K pounds of cotton. And you can watch all of the recordings of the past sessions at youtube.com/tsdesigns. And so those are all part of a playlist. We are sort of wrapping up the 2020 10,000 pounds of cotton, but we still, if you're a brand or a company who is interested in custom printing a private label of 10,000 pounds of cotton t-shirts, reach out to Eric at tsdesigns.com. And keep following the project and our ongoing projects by following TS Designs and Solid State Clothing on Instagram and Facebook, which you can find all of that on our website or just by looking those things up. And I believe that is all. Did I forget anything?
I think we're good.
Okay, we're
Thank
good.
you. Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Thank you all.
Good job.